Incredible true story, Black entrepreneur exposes airline injustice just 15 minutes after denial. Marcus Johnson had always believed in the power of dreams. As a 32-year-old Black entrepreneur in the heart of South Side Chicago, he poured his soul into his small tech company, hoping to inspire change. The foundation of his journey was built on the fierce lessons from his father, a proud veteran who instilled resilience and hard work in him. The company wasn't just business, it was the hope of a community waiting to rise. But a single email stole his breath away. His application for a vital business travel grant was denied. Just like that, the winds he had hoped would propel him forward turned sharp and cold. The news shattered the Sunday calm at the dinner table. His mother's soft laughter faded into shadows as Marcus shared the devastating update. The air thickened with shared disappointment, and memories poured out like a broken dam. She spoke of her own struggles, the years of chasing loans for her small bakery, only to be turned away. His father, too, recalled bitter moments in uniform, feeling invisible against a backdrop of color and policy. As each story unfolded, the injustice hung in the air, heavy and palpable. It stirred something deep within Marcus, a fire ignited by love, by struggle, by the shared weight of their dreams. Enough is enough, he declared, determination brewing in his chest. I need to understand why. That night, with restless energy, he reached out to fellow entrepreneurs and friends. A meeting was set in the vibrant community center, and as they gathered, voices that had long been quiet began to rise. Like a symphony of shared pain, stories of bias and systemic barriers filled the room. Marcus realized it was more than just one fight, it was their fight. Together, they would challenge the narrative kept in shadows too long. With a renewed sense of purpose, Marcus marched towards the airline's corporate office, armed with stories, statistics, and a passion for change. The sleek building towered over him, feeling foreign, the glass and steel stark against his humble, textured life. As he stepped inside, dismissive glances followed him. He felt it in his chest, a mix of indignation and determination. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, he was fighting for every overlooked entrepreneur, every aching heart burdened by an unfair system. Can I speak to the decision-makers? He asked the receptionist, his voice steady despite the shaking inside. It felt like a call to arms. As he entered the sterile meeting room, he laid bare the truths that haunted the streets of his neighborhood. His voice rang powerfully, cutting through the corporate din, revealing the biases masked by policy. And it happened. Curiosity stirred among those within earshot, a ripple of awareness sparked. Before he could even catch his breath, his phone buzzed, an urgent text from a friend. Glancing at the screen, his pulse raced as the words sank in. Look at the news, something big is happening. The world outside continued to spin, leaving Marcus at the precipice of higher stakes. Would this news uncover the injustices he battled, or would it tighten the chains binding their dreams? The weight of possibility pressed down, leaving Marcus hanging in an uncertain moment, a flicker of hope against the backdrop of an impending storm. What came next could change everything. Marcus stared at his phone, the screen flickering with a message that felt like a ticking clock. His heart raced. What could be happening? It was a moment that held so much promise, yet uncertainty hung in the air like a storm cloud. Just outside, the cacophony of Chicago life pulsed on, oblivious to his turmoil. Taking a steadying breath, he excused himself from the meeting room. The decision-maker's expressions shifted, curiosity morphing into concern as he shuffled out. His steps quickened as he found a quiet corner, the ambient noise fading behind him. He opened his friend's message again, his fingers trembling slightly. Look at the news, something big is happening. He clicked on the link, and his heart sank. Headlines flashed across the screen, each word striking like a blow. Reports were surfacing about policies in the airline industry, discriminatory practices that had hidden beneath the surface for too long. Community members were speaking out, telling their stories. News anchors were highlighting the very biases Marcus had just laid bare in the boardroom. We need to take action, he whispered to himself, adrenaline coursing through him. This was the moment. The world finally seemed to be paying attention. The shared experiences of people like him were resonating beyond their community, sparking fires elsewhere. But would it be enough? Returning to the meeting, Marcus could feel the electric energy swirling among his peers. The whispers in the room silenced as he stepped back in, their eyes on him, filled with questions. "Did you see the news?" one woman asked, her voice laced with hope. "Yes, I did," Marcus replied, his voice firm. "This is bigger than any one of us. We have a chance to turn this awareness into action. We need to be the voice that echoes beyond these walls." The room buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose. Ideas flowed as they strategized how to respond to the unfolding narrative. They discussed everything from press conferences to social media campaigns, each person eager to contribute their talents. As he looked around the room, Marcus couldn't help but feel the collective strength. Together, they were building a movement. A wave of determination flooded through him. "Let us organize a rally," he said, feeling the enthusiasm grow. "Let us show them we won't be silenced." The excitement was infectious. Each person began to speak up, sharing their vision of what a united front would look like. They discussed their next steps, and Marcus felt the charge in the air. They were not just fighting for an application, they were fighting for everyone's right to be heard, but just as hope hit its peak, his phone buzzed again. Another message. He glanced down, frowning. It was from the same friend, this one more urgent. "Marcus, they're trying to silence us. We need to act fast." His heart dropped. The battle was escalating, and vigilance would be crucial. The tide was turning, but there were deeper currents beneath. What darkness threatened to rise as they pursued their light? The room full of fervent faces seemed to blur, and Marcus realized their moment of truth was approaching. If they could elevate their voices, would they drown out the noise looking to silence them? Would they stand strong, or would they be swallowed by the very system they aimed to change? The stakes had never felt higher, and as they began to strategize, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something monumental, something that would require not just their voices, but their very souls. What could happen when they stepped into the spotlight, and would they be ready for the consequences that lay ahead? The air in the room grew thick with anticipation as Marcus took a deep breath, rallying his thoughts. He knew there was no turning back. "Let us harness this momentum," he said, looking each person in the eyes. "We need a plan, and we need it now." Ideas bounced from one person to another, each building upon the last. A woman named Laura stood up, waving her hands to grab everyone's attention. "What if we invited local media to cover the rally? If we can get them to see the personal stories behind the statistics, it could make a real impact." "Great idea." Marcus agreed, picturing the headlines that could accompany their cause. "We can share testimonials, put faces to the stories people have only read about." He felt a surge of hope, seeing how each person was eager to contribute to a vision they all shared. Focus shifted, and someone suggested a workshop before the rally to educate their community. "We need everyone aligned," Marcus said. "Let us engage people from all walks of life, make sure they know that this affects us all." As the conversation heated up, the urgency from his friend's message crept back into his mind. "But we need to make sure we do this right," he interjected, his voice lowering. "If they're trying to silence us, we need to be strategic. We can't let fear dictate our actions." A murmur of agreement brushed through the room. As conversations continued, an exchange of fervent looks turned into laughter and camaraderie. It was cathartic, a reminder that they were not fighting alone. Yet, just as quickly as joy filled the room, a weight pressed down on Marcus's shoulders. He stepped back from the group for a moment, checking his phone again. No new messages, but the news still consumed his mind. What were they up against? Images of reports flashing on his screen popped into his head, a reminder of the forces that sought to silence their voices. A hand touched his shoulder. It was Laura. "You good? You seem deep in thought." Yeah, just thinking, he replied, forcing a smile. I want to make sure we're prepared for anything. We need a solid front. Absolutely. But we also can't forget we're fighting for love and truth, she said, her eyes sincere. Their conversation faded, and Marcus watched as the energy in the room shifted back to planning. He rejoined the group, heart racing as the passion rekindled. Among the discussions, they formulated their approach, a mix of personal stories, powerful visuals, and a robust social media strategy to reach those beyond their echo chamber. They planned for an emotional appeal, one that sought a human connection. Suddenly, Marcus's phone buzzed yet again, jolting him back. The urgency in the next message was palpable. We may already have opposition. People in higher places don't like when the status quo shakes. The room hushed. He could feel the fear settle over them like a cold breeze, but he took a moment to look around. He saw determination, the fire of action sparked by each heart in the room. Guys, he said clearly, if we falter now, we lose everything we've built. We have to keep fighting. The words hung in the air, igniting another round of fervent agreement. As they pored over each detail, determined to bolster their mission, Marcus realized that this was just the beginning. But looming questions loomed in the back of his mind. What would they do if the opposition played dirty? And was the light they sought strong enough to fend off the shadows closing in? As their planning continued with renewed vigor, he sensed the moment was fast approaching when they would move from discussions to actions. Would their fight for justice spark a flame that could light the dark corners of a stubborn industry? Would they unite a community long aching for acknowledgement? The countdown had begun, but with every second that passed, the tension weighed heavier than ever. Marcus felt the weight in his chest pulling tighter, but he forced it down. He looked at the faces around him, determined to ignite the fire burning in their eyes. Everyone, we need to prepare ourselves for the unexpected. Let us make a timeline. What do we want to accomplish in the next week leading up to the rally? The group sprang into action, and as they brainstormed, the energy shifted once more. Ideas flourished with each suggestion, like sparks catching fire. Laura suggested setting up a social media countdown, creating buzz with clips from their workshops, snippets of testimonials, and reminders of the rally date. Different platforms, different messages, she said, excitement lighting up her features. We can even start an online petition and get people involved before the actual event. Make them feel like they have a stake in this. Exactly, Marcus chimed in, feeling a rush of optimism. The more voices we have, the louder we become. We'll show them they can't just ignore this anymore. With every new plan, every hashtag tossed around like confetti, Marcus sensed a shift inside himself. Their cause mattered, and it resonated with the very fabric of their community. They were not just individuals with opinions, they were part of something much larger. As the night wore on, the reality of their situation began to sink in. Sitting around the table, laughter echoed mixed with moments of seriousness. Marcus held his phone loosely in his hand, refreshing the news app obsessively, but nothing new appeared. His focus kept drifting to the message that warned of the opposition. Any word from our contacts? Laura asked, snapping him back to the moment. No, not yet, he replied, his voice lower. But I think it's important we stay ahead of whatever storm may be brewing. The atmosphere grew heavy as they absorbed the weight of Marcus's words. Yet there was an unspoken understanding that gave him strength. They were all afraid, but in this room, fear transformed into fuel. Suddenly, someone suggested partner organizations that had tackled similar issues. We might reach out to groups that have done this before, they said, and that sparked a new energy. Each person in the room had a network, friends who might want to help. Marcus felt hope clashing with the cold reality. They could not afford to wait for support, they had to move. How about we make a list of people to contact tonight? The sooner, the better, he proposed, and everyone nodded, motivated by urgency. Task lists formed and numbers clicked, fingers danced over screens. With each click, Marcus could almost feel the gears of change turning. Then Carl, a soft-spoken member of the group, piped up, "What if we just knock on doors too? Get people physically involved. It has a bigger impact than just digital." "Beautiful," Marcus said, snapping his fingers in approval. "Let us mobilize volunteers to hit the ground in the neighborhoods." Excitement wrapped around the room like a warm blanket. The night was growing late, but the energy was palpable. Ideas branched out like roots, connecting them all on a deeper level, making the fight feel even more personal. However, a nagging thought crept back into Marcus's mind. What if they stepped past the threshold of action and faced real consequences? What would it mean to stand firm against powerful forces? As they drafted outreach strategies and committed phone numbers to memory, an alarm of doubts whispered urgently at the edges of Marcus's thoughts. He made an internal promise to push against that nagging fear. It would not win. Just then, the door swung open. A newcomer burst into the room, breathless and wide-eyed. "Guys! You won't believe what I just heard." Marcus felt his heart race. What news had just walked through that door? Was it the sign they had been hoping for, or was it trouble lurking ominously ahead? The night was far from over, and the battle was only beginning. The newcomer scanned the room, wild-eyed, as silence enveloped them. Marcus could feel every heart in the room quicken. "What is it?" he urged, leaning in. His pulse matched the urgency in the air. "They're planning something big. I overheard them at the cafe down the street. They're organizing against us." She paused, catching her breath, before continuing. "It's not just talk. There's a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to strategize against the rally." A murmur swept through the group like a gust of wind. Marcus's stomach churned, thoughts racing. Who were they? How far would they go to silence voices like theirs? Did they say anything specific? Laura asked, eyes wide, but Marcus could see her determination. "Just that they want to undermine us before we even begin," the newcomer replied. "They're keen on pulling some strings to drown out our message on social media and possibly disrupting the rally. They think they can scare us off." "Fear won't work," Marcus said, gripping the edge of the table. "We can't let them intimidate us." "Right. We have each other," Carl chimed in. "We need to stand firm and organized." "Exactly," Marcus shouted, feeling the fire rekindle within him. "If they think they can throw wrenches in our plans, they are dead wrong. Their meeting is the perfect opportunity for us to strategize our countermoves. We can infiltrate it." The group exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and apprehension shadowing their faces. "But how?" Laura asked. Marcus took a deep breath, his mind racing through possibilities. "We'll send a few of us undercover. Maybe we can uncover their plans and broadcast what we find. They think they're hiding in the dark, but we'll shine our light right on them." A thrill coursed through him. This was the kind of resolve they needed. It wasn't just about defending their ideas but challenging their opponents head-on. "What if we create a distraction too?" Carl suggested, visibly gaining confidence. "While a few of us go in, we can set up at the local park to gather support and let people know what this is about. I mean, who'd want to miss a chance to stand against injustice?" "Brilliant!" Marcus exclaimed, nodding enthusiastically. "We can leaflet the neighborhoods to keep the community aware and engaged while we expose them." Their ideas snowballed, feeding off one another's energy. Plans merged and morphed as if they were dance partners, each step purposeful and in sync. They felt the strength of community wrap around them, igniting the resolve they all desperately needed. As plans took shape, Marcus couldn't shake the knot in his stomach. He thought of countless rallies that turned ugly, the chaos of misjudgment, the violence that sometimes overshadowed their messages. He caught himself biting his lip, uncertainty gnawing at him again. "What if something goes wrong?" he murmured, glancing at the floor. "Marcus," Laura said gently, her eyes steady, "we're not just an idea anymore. We're a movement. And movements are built on risk. We have to move forward regardless of the dangers. That's how change happens. Her words struck a chord deep within him. Change did not come from safety or silence. Gaining his confidence, Marcus nodded. They settled into a rhythm of ideas, text messages flying and plans forming swiftly like a storm building up on the horizon. But behind the fervor, the unease lingered. At that moment, a thorny thought pierced Marcus's mind. Were they prepared for whatever thunder sounded out of the storm? Would they be ready for the blowback? Just as he pondered this, the door swung open again, revealing a familiar face. Guys, it's even worse. They're planning to escalate things, and they want someone to take the fall. The unease in the room thickened as Marcus felt the pulse of uncertainty beat faster. How far would their opposition go? What had they joined? The crawl of disbelief twisted in his gut, demanding an answer in the face of impending chaos. Was this truly the beginning, or the beginning of the end? The room was electric with tension. Every face was a mix of shock and determination. Someone to take the fall? Marcus echoed, his heart racing. The newcomer nodded, fear evident in her eyes. They've identified one of us. They're planning to pin everything on them. Who? Laura demanded, her voice breaking slightly. Marcus could see the fear tightening her features, but behind it lay a fierce resolve. I didn't catch the name, she replied, glancing around as if expecting whoever it was to come bursting through the door. All I know is they think targeting someone will take the pressure off them. Divide and conquer, Carl muttered, his earlier enthusiasm dimming. That's their play. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This was serious. We have to figure out who they're talking about before it's too late, he urged, trying to keep his voice steady despite the dread creeping in. We can't let them sacrifice one of our own. What can we do? Laura asked, her brows pinching together. We don't even know where to start. Marcus paced the floor, wrist tapping on his cheek. If we can make a list of everyone likely to go to that meeting tomorrow, we can pinpoint who they might be targeting. We're all active in this, but some of us might be more visible, more of a threat to them. Right, she agreed, nodding furiously. Let us spread out, see who's hanging out in public spaces, someone might overhear something. The urgency snapped Marcus back into focus. He gathered everyone for an impromptu brainstorming session, each offering names and suggestions, voices overlapping in the charged air. Hope flickered among the panic, the shared resolve igniting in unexpected ways. There's the cafe, Carl suggested, excitement rekindled in his voice. It's a hub. Someone might hear those talking about the target. A collective nod went around, the spark was back. We need to fan out and keep our ears open, Marcus stated, the plan solidifying with each passing second. But we also need someone to stay behind, keep the lines of communication open. I'll do it, Laura volunteered. If something comes up, I can pass messages. And I can coordinate the distraction in the park, make sure it goes smoothly. Good thinking, Marcus said, appreciating her courage. The rest of us will hit the streets. Remember, we stick together, but we also stay sharp. They'll be waiting for us to make a mistake. As the group dispersed, Marcus found himself lingering behind for a moment, his mind racing. Was their cause worth this kind of risk? Were they truly prepared for the consequences? The door creaked open again, and an anxious newcomer stepped in. Her eyes were wide, breath coming in short gasps. Please, I heard something. They're going to use the rally as a cover for something else. What do you mean? Marcus asked, stepping closer, concern etching his features. If you don't stop them, it might get violent. There's talk of an attack, something big. The room seemed to sway with the weight of her words. The urgency, the fear, and the responsibility all collided within Marcus, churning together in a volatile mix. Time was running out. The realization of the stakes became overwhelmingly real, urgency coursing through him. "Okay, we're meeting back here in 1 hour," he directed. "Everyone needs to gather whatever intel you can. We'll need a solid plan before tomorrow." As he turned to follow Laura out, doubt gnawed at him again. Was this too much? Were they stepping into a storm they couldn't survive? Amidst the turmoil of their plans, another thought flickered in his mind. If they could do this, if they could rally, they might discover strength they never knew they had. Would this be their defining moment, or would they fall under the weight of it all? And would they be able to get there before it was too late? Marcus stepped out into the chilly night air, his heart still pounding from the tension in the room. He watched as the others split off into the shadows, urgency in every step they took. In that moment, it felt like the world outside was darker, as if the city had sensed the turmoil inside him. He pulled his jacket tighter, trying to ward off the chill that was creeping beyond the cold night that he headed towards the cafe, his footsteps echoing off the pavement. Each click of his shoes sounded like a countdown. He needed to gather information. He needed answers. After all, someone was in jeopardy, and he was determined not to let them pay the price for a game he refused to understand fully. As he arrived at the cafe, the warm light spilling from the windows was inviting. He pushed the door open, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around him like a hug. But instead of comfort, a wave of unease rushed over him. This was no ordinary gathering, it was a battlefield disguised as a casual outing. Marcus navigated through the tables, his eyes scanning for familiar faces. He spotted a group in the corner whispering intensely. As he walked closer, he could pick up bits of conversation. The tone was low but filled with urgency. He leaned in a little further, ears pricked, hoping to catch something vital. "That punk thinks he can just walk away, but they'll make him pay," one voice said, a hard edge lacing their words. Marcus's heart faltered. Whatever they were discussing, it sounded like a plan. He strained to listen, analyzing their expressions, gauging the shifts in their posture. There was fear and boldness mixed together, a dangerous cocktail. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and two figures entered, panicked and on high alert. Marcus instinctively ducked into the shadows, holding his breath. He recognized them. They were known associates of the other side, the ones who used intimidation as a weapon. What were they doing here? "Did you hear anything?" one asked the other, voice barely above a whisper. "Not yet. Keep your ears open. The attack is going down." The gravity of the words hit Marcus like a punch in the gut. This was a real threat, and the stakes had risen beyond his worst fears. He turned his gaze back to the corner group, but they were shifting, drawing in closer, a circle of conspirators. This wasn't just chatter, it felt like a plan coming together. With his heart racing, Marcus knew he had to make a move. He needed to warn the others, but he had to do it without drawing attention to himself. He slipped outside, phone in hand. What should he tell Laura? How could he phrase the danger without causing panic? The plan was already precarious, but now it felt like an avalanche was rolling down the mountain, ready to sweep them all away. Just as he dialed, a sound startled him, a shout from inside the cafe. He whipped around to see the group scrambling, their excitement skyrocketing to chaos. Something had gone wrong. The tone shifted from conspiratorial to alarmed. "Run! They're on to us!" Fear gripped Marcus. He didn't have time to waste. With clenched fists, he raced back to the meeting point. He had to get there first, had to gather everyone. But as he sprinted down the street, his mind raced with one burning question: did they still have time to prevent the chaos that was about to unfold? As the darkened buildings whisked past him, the urgency of their situation sank in deeper than ever. Would they be ready for what lay ahead, or had they already lost their chance? The streets blurred past Marcus, each stride fueled by adrenaline, his mind racing with fragmented thoughts. The chaos at the cafe echoed in his mind like a drum, a warning thundering through him. Had the unexpected entrance of those figures tipped the balance toward disaster? He tried to shake off the dread settling in his gut. Reaching the meeting point, the small park was nearly deserted, the trees swaying gently in the cool breeze. The dim light of the street lamps cast shadows that danced around him, amplifying the tension in the air. Marcus spotted Laura sitting on a park bench, her face taut with concern. When her eyes met his, a spark of fear flickered in them. It was as if they both sensed the weight of the situation hanging heavily between them. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice low and hushed but laced with urgency. "Things escalated at the cafe. We're not safe here, Laura. I heard them talk about a plan, an attack." Her eyes widened, and Marcus could see the wheels turning in her mind. "What kind of attack?" "I don't know. But we need to warn the others. Everyone needs to be on high alert. Now." He was practically pleading now, urgency clawing at him. Before Laura could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed with a notification, a group chat message. He hastily opened it, his heart racing again. "They know. We've been compromised. Get to safety, now." The message was clear. There was no room for second guessing. "They're coming," he whispered, his voice barely escaping his lips. Looking around anxiously, he felt exposed under the relentless gaze of the street lamps, as though shadows were gravitating toward him. "Come on, we need to move," he urged, grabbing Laura's hand. They ducked behind a thick grove of trees, pausing to catch their breath. Every sound seemed amplified: rustling leaves, distant sirens, and the echo of their heartbeats. "Marcus," Laura said, her voice shaky, "what if they find us? I won't let that happen." "We'll think of something," he promised, but the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. This wasn't just another risk, this was life and death. Suddenly, a group of figures emerged from the cafe, their silhouettes sharp against the backdrop of the night. Marcus's blood ran cold as they scanned the park, searching. Shivers skittered down his spine as he gripped Laura's hand tighter. "Keep still," he mouthed, willing himself to be invisible. The seconds dragged on, each one laced with anxiety, as the figures whispered among themselves, their body language impatient and aggressive. "I can't just stand here," Laura hissed, her voice rising in a panic. "What if I know?" he interjected harshly. "But any movement now could give us away." As they crouched there, Marcus's mind raced. He thought of their friends waiting back at the cafe, unaware of the danger racing toward them. Could they really do nothing? Just then, a flicker of inspiration ignited within him. "We need a distraction." Laura eyed him, uncertainty and determination warring in her expression. "How?" Marcus glanced around the park, heart pounding. There was a small copse nearby, a few branches heavy with leaves. If he could ignite a spark, create a light, a noise, anything to draw their attention. "Wait here," he said, though he was hesitant to leave her side. As he crept away, his pulse thundered in his ears. What if this went wrong? What if they caught him? He glanced back once, seeing Laura's fearful gaze. That look pushed him forward. There had to be a way out. There just had to be. He moved stealthily toward the copse, praying for inspiration to strike. But would he still have time to save his friends, or was his plan destined to fail? The shadows danced ominously around him as he prepared to set his plan into motion, the tension thick in the air. Time was slipping away. Would he act in time, or would the darkness close in too soon? With each cautious step toward the copse, Marcus's mind raced. He could feel his heartbeat thrumming in his chest, a relentless reminder of the danger shadowing them. Laura's anxious expression flickered through his mind like a beacon. He couldn't fail her, he couldn't let them down. As he reached the small cluster of trees, he scanned the shadows for something, anything that could help him create a distraction. A discarded soda can glinted in the low light. Perfect. The metal was resilient enough to make a noise when thrown. He crouched down, gripping it with sweaty palms and weighing the risk. If he just threw it toward the opposite side of the park, it could buy them a few precious seconds. Time was becoming a cruel adversary, and the men from the cafe seemed to be getting closer with every breath he took. He glanced back at Laura, who remained hidden but her eyes haunted with fear. He needed to make this work, no room for mistakes. Drawing a deep breath, he positioned himself behind the nearest tree and prepared for his throw. He felt the cool metal against his fingers, but as he focused on his target, he heard muffled voices from the direction of the cafe. They were getting louder. A surge of urgency kicked in, spurring him into action. With a swift motion, he hurled the can. It careened through the air, hitting the cement path with a sharp clatter that sliced through the night. In that heartbeat, all conversation ceased, and every figure pivoted toward the sound. "Now!" Marcus hissed, sprinting back toward Laura without looking back. He grabbed her hand, and together they bolted deeper into the park, away from the anticipated chaos. Adrenaline fueled their limbs as they dashed through the trees, weaving in and out of shadows. Did it work? Laura panted, her breath coming in ragged gasps as they stumbled into a clearing. "Only one way to find out," Marcus replied, pushing away the fear gnawing at his insides. The moment they caught their breath, they had to regroup to piece together what came next. The darkness seemed to close in around them. Silence filled the air, amplifying their labored breathing and racing hearts. Marcus could almost hear the tension hanging like fog between them. "We need to get to the others," he insisted, his voice firm, though cracks of worry slipped through. Little did they know that the distraction had drawn not only their pursuers but also an unexpected witness, someone lurking in the shadows, observing everything unfold. Just as Marcus opened his mouth to speak, a heavy footstep crunched the twigs behind them. Laura's wide eyes locked onto Marcus, mirroring his growing horror. Before they could react, a figure stepped into the moonlight, a tall silhouette with an unreadable expression. "You two sure know how to stir up trouble, don't you?" Heart racing, Marcus felt a rush of conflicting emotions: relief that they weren't alone and dread at the uncertainty of the stranger's intentions. Who were they? Friend or foe? The question loomed over them as the figure took a slow step forward, his gaze piercing through the night. "What do you want?" Marcus demanded, a mix of defiance and fear in his voice. As the figure remained silent, the air thickened with tension. In that moment, they stood on the brink of something unknown, tied together by the weight of the chaos unfolding around them. Would this encounter lead them to safety or pull them deeper into the nightmare? Their future hung in the balance, ready to tip in either direction. What would the figure reveal? And were they ready to face whatever that might be? With every breath, the heavy atmosphere buzzed with uncertainty as Marcus faced the figure stepping into the moonlight. The stranger was clad in a dark hoodie, their face obscured by a fervent shadow. Despite the fear swirling in his chest, curiosity hung in the air like a vibrant spark. "Who are you?" Marcus pressed again, his voice brave despite the tremble underneath. "Are you with them?" The figure drew closer, pulling back the hood to reveal sharp, focused eyes that sparked recognition. "I'm someone who knows what you're up against." The voice was steady, a tone cultivated by battles fought in obscurity. "Do you work with the opposition?" Laura's voice quivered with suspicion, unwilling to show any sign of vulnerability. "No. I'm here to help you," the stranger replied, glancing towards the shadows shifting behind them. "I've seen what they have planned. They don't just want to undermine your rally. They want to create chaos, to institute fear." Marcus exchanged glances with Laura, uncertainty morphing into resolve. "What do you know?" he asked, subtly lowering his guard, eager to understand the magnitude of what they faced. "They're planning to use your rally as cover to disrupt the event and place the blame on your group," the stranger explained. "They intend to incite violence, to make it look like it's your fault. But I have a plan. That's not what we want." Marcus snapped, heart racing. "We're fighting for awareness, not destruction." "I understand," replied the figure, raising their hands as if to calm him. "That's why I'm here. Together, we can expose their intentions before things escalate." "Who sent you?" Laura sounded both wary and hopeful. "I overheard your plans. I'm an informant for a network in the city that fights for justice." My name is Sam. I want to see you succeed in this battle." Instinctively, Marcus felt the weight of trust press against his chest. "What do we need to do?" "Their heightened tactics mean you need to be ahead of them. You must gather together your supporters. Strength comes in numbers. We can set a trap, lure them out so we can film what is happening as proof." Ideas exploded in Marcus's mind, envisioning the pieces in movement to protect their movement. "But we need to ensure everyone stays safe." "You have that covered," Sam assured him. "With the right diversion, we can make sure they're unaware of what is happening." Marcus nodded, feeling determination bubbling back to life. Hope flickered brightly within him. "Okay. Let us do it." As Sam laid out the plan, Marcus felt a current of clarity rushing through him, a oneness with purpose that united them against all odds. With every strategized moment, the urgency swept through him like wildfire. The silhouettes in the park shifted, and he could hear the strong beats of their hearts synchronized with the rhythm of their mission. Once the details were set, Laura squeezed Marcus's hand, supporting him as they prepared to leap into action. "Let us gather everyone. We can't let them sabotage our message. What if they find out?" Doubts crept back, but Marcus shook his head. "Fear won't lead us. This is our moment. We need to raise our voices louder than ever. Together, we'll turn dark intentions into beacons for change." They took off running through the park, adrenaline propelling them forward. The tension dissolved with every stride, converting their fears into an electric charge of collective will. As they burst out into the light of the street, the world before them transformed into vast possibilities. With a deep breath, Marcus began to call out to their friends as they regrouped in the cafe, filling the air with urgency and empowerment. "We know what is coming, and we're too strong to let them silence us. We'll uplift our community." Cheers erupted, waves of determination spread like a wildfire in the room. One voice joined another, stories flowed like thunder, brewing a storm that showed no sign of retreat. "Let us show them what we're made of." Someone shouted, and just like that, the dark clouds of doubt began to shift towards a sunlit horizon. Marcus felt the strength of support. Around him, a communal heart beating towards victory. This was the culmination of the struggle. They were warriors together, fighting from a deep place of love and resolve. With hands raised high and voices united, they invoked hope in the hearts of all who gathered. The voices sang like a chorus, resounding with echoes of truth, ready to face whatever storm the night had to offer. Together, they were a force unstoppable. As Marcus glanced around, feeling the weight of the moment, he realized this was the fight that would change lives. They were standing on the cusp of something monumental. He vowed to channel every ounce of hope and courage that burned within him into the light of their collective dream, a hope for fairness, compassion, and family. And in that sacred togetherness, he felt something else blossoming: confidence, that tingling little spark of belief that together they would emerge from the shadows into a new dawn. It was more than just a rally, it was a movement. Now, it was time to remind the world to listen. If you felt the weight of this journey, then now is your time to act. You need to subscribe now to witness our next incredible story. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions, your feelings about this ending. It's time to let our voices be heard.